Welcome back. In this lesson we're going to talk about the eraser tools. Under the eraser tools there are a few different options. We have the basic eraser tool, the background eraser tool, and the magic eraser tool. We'll start with the basic eraser tool. There's not a lot to say about it. It does exactly what it sounds like. It erases things. You have a few options as far as your brushes. Just like all the other brushes, you can change the size and the type of brush that you're using. You have a couple of different modes. You can make it a brush mode or a pencil mode or a block mode. Usually you're just going to use brush. You can change the opacity. So we have it at I have it at 50, but let's put it back to 100, and you can see I'm just erasing. Now what I've got behind here is another image that's showing. I'm going to turn that off. You can see we're just basically erasing. We'll increase the size of the brush, and this is a destructive type of erasing or of editing. Once you've erased it, it's gone without actually coming in here and undoing it. The other options that we could have the opacity set a little lower. If we set it down to 50%, you're going to erase at 50% opacity. So you're not fully erasing it, you're only erasing whatever percentage you've set here. Then we have the tablet pressure for size and opacity. This one's opacity, this one's size. These are things we've talked about before. The flow works exactly the same. All these work the same as the other brush tools. An interesting thing here is the erase to history option. Erase to history essentially will erase to a predetermined position in history that you've chosen on your history panel. So let's take a look here. We'll go ahead and grab a regular brush. We'll go ahead and grab a regular brush and just kind of paint some stuff. Now if I come over here to the history palette, I can see that I've made a bunch of brush strokes, and I have this option here where I can put a paintbrush. This is how Photoshop knows which layer or which history step you're trying to erase to. So now if we go and grab the eraser tool again, and we have erase to history selected, we can erase. We'll change our opacity back to 100%, and what we're erasing, it will erase back to wherever the brush is selected here. This is something you could do with the history brush, but this is a basic way to use that. Okay, I think that pretty much covers that. Now let's go back to the open spot here, turn that brush off. And now we'll talk about the background eraser tool. This really works a lot like the color replacement tool in how you use it or how you set it. Instead of replacing colors, though, you are erasing colors. So if you look up here at the options, you can see that it looks very similar to the color replacement tool options. We've got sampling for continuous, for once, and for a background swatch. We've got a limits option here. It's the same thing, discontiguous, contiguous, and find edges. Then we've got your tolerance, protect foreground color is a new thing that we'll talk about, and then the tablet pressure for size. And the way that this works, we've got our layer selected with the hillside and the blue sky. Let's zoom it up a little bit. And so like the color replacement tool, you can have sampling continuous where Photoshop is continuously sampling whatever your mouse or your cursor is over. Or you can sample once where you have sampled a particular color. We sample the blue, and it will grab that blue. Now if we turn the tolerance up and down, just like anytime we use tolerance, it'll affect the amount of tolerance Photoshop has for how far out does it look from that color. If we sample this exact blue, a 0 tolerance means it's only going to, or a 1 tolerance I guess, means it's only going to get exactly that blue. Now if we increase the tolerance a little bit, we can erase. You can see better. Before it was grabbing parts of the hillside. Now that I've lowered the tolerance, it's not grabbing those pixels. The contiguous and discontiguous is the same thing as when we use the car example. You know, contiguous basically works where it's grabbing only colors that haven't been broken by another color. Discontiguous means that it will go across the other color. Here we go. Here's a good example. Zoom into this green here. So we've got contiguous. We'll sample the green. And if we try to erase that, you can see it's not getting the green on the other side of the tree, even though it's the same kind of green. Because the tree is blocking it by breaking the color. Now if we choose discontiguous, oops, and we go back a little bit here, we sample this color. Now you can see that it will grab green on the other side of the tree. And this kind of, because this is all so much green, it's grabbing part of the tree as well. But you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. So contiguous will only grab on the one side of the line. Discontiguous will grab on both sides of the line, as long as your crosshairs don't go over another color to sample. And that's if you're doing continuous. If you sample once, then you wouldn't have to worry about that as much. Sampling the background, we'll just use the sample from the background swatch. Now you have an interesting option here where you can protect the foreground color. Now this is useful for if you find that Photoshop is grabbing parts of your image that you don't want it to when you're trying to erase. You can grab a particular foreground color that you don't want it to erase. We'll choose that. Choose Protect Foreground. And now when we go in and erase, it will not grab the foreground color. It's protecting that. That should work pretty well even if you don't have foreground color selected, but that is so that if you find that it's getting a color you don't want it to, you can check it and it will not get that color. That covers all the options in this particular tool. Let's move on to the Magic Eraser tool. Zoom this back out. Okay. Now the Magic Eraser tool works a lot like the Magic Wand tool. But rather than simply selecting colors, it actually erases them. So you will grab where you click, and it'll erase colors, all of that similar type. You can see it quickly grabbed all those blues and just took them out. Let's go back up and take a look at that again. So let's grab the Magic Wand tool just to kind of show an example. Now if we come to this picture here and we see the Magic Wand tool has grabbed all this blue just by simply clicking on it. We've got all the blue. The Magic Eraser is doing essentially the same thing. It's just not showing you a selection, it's simply erasing the selection. And you can come up here and you have similar options where you can change the tolerance. You've got your anti-alias, which is because of the curved edges. Whether you want it to be contiguous, sample all layers, and then the opacity. The tolerance is really just like all the other tolerances. How far out from this point of the color you've selected do you want it to consider? If the tolerance is 1, it's going to consider exactly that color of pixel, which usually isn't effective. But you increase the tolerance and you see it grabs more, whatever's in that range. And so if you find that it's not quite grabbing what you want it to grab, you can increase your tolerance until you've gotten really all that you need to. So go to 60. And it should be pretty much the entire blue. It's not perfect. You come down, I can zoom in and see that the mountainside isn't quite perfect, but it's pretty darn close. And then the contiguous is the same as it works for every other tool that has contiguous. It's going to grab that color only up to the point where it can be broken by another color. For instance, with this green, it gets broken right here, even though this is a similar green, it gets broken by this line of darker trees. So let's grab, tolerance is a little high there. Let's grab less tolerance, 20. And see, this right here is broken. There's a little house here. Zoom in and we'll see. This breaks the line of green. But, undo that, and we uncheck contiguous, it will grab this color of green from anywhere in the whole entire image. Now, zoom back out. You can see it's grabbed all that green, even over here. Sometimes you need that, sometimes you want it to really stick to being contained in a certain area. Okay, so then sample all layers, just, we've got multiple layers. Do we want it to consider this color that we're choosing from both layers? So we've got a white here. We should be able to, let's increase the, let's move this over just so we can see what it does. No, it's not a very bright white. Let's try the white from the sun maybe. So we'll check sample all layers. And we'll click on that. Okay, so we clicked on the white from the sun on the layer behind, but it's still grabbing the white off of the mountains on this layer. Okay. And then, of course, opacity. Uncheck sample all layers, lower the opacity to 50, and we're not fully erasing. Well, actually, we'll change the opacity to, let's say, 30. We'll change the tolerance back up to 50. And we're not, 100%. You can see it's not the full purple sky. We've got an opacity. We'll turn this off and you can, I guess that doesn't really help. So you can see that we can kind of see the layer behind through it, but not fully, because we haven't done 100% erasing. We did 20%. Okay, let's go back up here. So that does it for this lesson on the eraser tools. We'll see you in the next lesson. Let me know your thoughts on this one through the comments. Thank you.